You want to buy a normal house, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, maybe a single-car garage. It is the exact kind of home your parents or grandparents might have purchased when they were your age. Today, in many American cities, that basic setup costs more than several years of a family's full-time earnings combined. The affordability squeeze long ago left the expensive coastal markets. It has steadily spread into the suburbs, mid-sized cities, and ordinary towns that used to feel entirely safe from these price tags. The cost of admission to the middle class has climbed, but for many families, the paychecks have not kept pace. Buyers face a double pressure: soaring home prices and rising interest rates. This means the same house that felt manageable a few years ago now requires a much larger portion of a family's monthly income. A generation ago, it often felt possible for one solid income to support that kind of purchase. Today, 2 adults with steady, full-time careers routinely get outbid, turned down, or told to save longer. And waiting creates its own trap. Home prices frequently climb faster than a savings account can keep up, which makes the goal of a down payment feel like it is constantly moving further away. For many people, the math they expected to use when they started their careers no longer aligns with the reality of the current market. If you have spent years renting, trying to stack up a down payment while the number you need keeps jumping out of reach, your frustration is valid. This shift in the market did not happen in one dramatic moment. The relationship between income and housing costs eroded gradually over decades. Most people do not notice the severity of this change until they actively try to buy a home and realize the numbers do not add up the way they were told they would. While you cannot control the broader economy, you are not stuck. There are practical moves you can make to improve your position and protect yourself from making a high-pressure mistake. Navigating a difficult market requires shifting your focus away from broad trends and toward the personal financial data you can actually influence. Start by tracking every single dollar you spend for 90 days. Groceries, gas, digital subscriptions, dining out, all of it. Without a clear picture of your daily money flow, you cannot accurately determine what you can handle as a monthly mortgage payment. A bank might approve you for a massive mortgage, but the maximum debt a lender allows and the monthly payment you can live with comfortably are 2 very different things. When you audit your real spending, you find your real number. This is the amount you can pay toward a home each month without suffocating your daily life. Establishing this baseline helps first-time buyers avoid walking into the purchase process guessing and hoping. Historically, home prices and wages moved in tandem. Paychecks rose at a similar rate, keeping the balance workable. Eventually, that relationship weakened. Home prices rose faster than earnings, creating an expanding gap between housing costs and what families bring home. This divergence is especially difficult for first-time buyers who are already managing high rents and student loan debt, making it harder to bridge that gap with savings alone. What used to be a brief period of focused saving has turned into a prolonged structural disadvantage for a new generation of buyers. This gap has permanently altered the math in mid-sized cities and suburban tracts that were previously considered affordable havens. Overcoming this environment requires identifying the common financial mistakes that people make when they feel pressured by rising prices. Taking actionable steps, beginning with the 90-day audit, builds a stronger purchasing position, regardless of your current savings. Clearly diagnosing the math of the modern market is the required prerequisite for making a smart, unpressured purchase. If you have looked at the housing market recently and felt a mix of confusion and frustration, you are not alone. You can drive through a typical neighborhood, see the same houses that have stood there for decades, and wonder why they are suddenly entirely out of reach. The current state of housing is the mathematical result of a long-term structural mismatch that has been building for decades. This diagram shows a perfectly balanced starting scenario. Imagine a town with exactly 100 families and 100 homes. In this setup, every single family has a place to live, supply meets demand, and prices remain stable. Then the population grows. Let's say 20 new families move in, looking for a place to settle down. But the town does not build 20 new houses to match. Only 5 new homes get built. Suddenly, you have 115 families competing for 105 homes. Prices go up because there are not enough homes to go around. This physical shortage creates a foundational pressure that permanently drives the baseline cost of housing upward. To understand why developers do not simply build more houses to meet that demand, we have to look at the physical constraints of construction. Local zoning rules act as a primary barrier. These municipal regulations dictate exactly where and what types of homes are legally allowed to exist, often drawing restrictive boundaries that choke off potential development zones right where people want to live. Beyond legal limits, the baseline costs of physical building materials like lumber and concrete, alongside skilled labor, have climbed steadily. Bureaucratic red tape and expensive materials guarantee the housing shortage cannot be quickly resolved, cementing a high-pressure environment for anyone trying to buy a home. Physical supply is only half the story. To see the full picture, we have to look at the financial mechanics of how people actually purchase these homes. For more than a decade, the market operated under a historical anomaly where borrowing money was exceptionally cheap. These low interest rates allowed more buyers to qualify for larger loans, which in turn supercharged competition as more buyers chased the same scarce homes. For a typical home buyer with a fixed $1,500 monthly budget, low borrowing costs let them reach a large, spacious home. When borrowing costs increase, that same budget remains unchanged, but the home they can reach shrinks. This is the modern squeeze. Buyers are trapped because home prices surged when borrowing was cheap, but those prices stayed elevated even as the cost to borrow money soared. Fluctuating borrowing costs dictate the physical size and quality of a home a family can attain, reaching far beyond the simple numbers on a bank statement. Looking wider, a final variable has entered the market, introducing an entirely different type of competitor for traditional family housing. This chart shows the rapid transition of neighborhood market share. Deep-pocketed institutional investors have moved in, purchasing large blocks of single-family homes in meaningful numbers. Individual families now find themselves bidding directly against Wall Street capital, creating an inherently unequal competition for the same properties. While the entire crisis cannot be blamed on investors, their presence acts as a powerful accelerant in markets where inventory is already tight. The modern homebuyer competes against well-funded corporations, aggressively fighting for the exact same scarce resource. The crisis is a compounding mix of physical shortages, cheap money hangovers, and institutional competition. These structural flaws are deeply embedded and took decades to build up to this pressure point. Because of this massive underlying momentum, any market corrections will be incredibly slow. These forces move like a glacier, and they will not reverse course because of one policy change or a single season of the market. Passively waiting for the market to fix itself or crash is a dangerous strategy. It leaves your future completely up to chance and a market that is no longer behaving normally. The old playbook was linear. You saved up, you got approved, and bought a house. Relying on that outdated strategy in today's fractured market is a trap. Navigating this environment requires a smarter approach, designed specifically for these hostile conditions. This requires identifying and dodging the hidden mistakes that ruin modern buyers before they even make an offer. Success requires shifting your focus from uncontrollable macro market mechanics to the strategic choices you can actually control. You understand what pushed housing prices to where they are today. But navigating this high-pressure market requires knowing the biggest mistakes people make when trying to buy. These are the specific traps that drain your savings and waste months or even years of your time. If you fall for these 5 illusions, you risk long-term financial paralysis. Let's walk through them. Mistake number 1: waiting for a massive price drop before entering the market. Prices feel too high right now, so it is tempting to hold off. It is easy to assume that if you just wait a year or two, costs will eventually soften. But in broad national terms, major, widespread home price drops are exceptionally rare occurrences. This animated diagram shows what happens when prices actually do fall. A downward trend in housing prices directly triggers an upward spike in lending restrictions and job market instability. That economic pain means tighter lending, less job security, and smaller savings. Time spent waiting can mean more rent paid, draining your capital while borrowing costs fluctuate in ways you cannot predict. Waiting by itself is not a reliable strategy. Mistake number 2: treating the bank's maximum approval number as your personal budget. When a lender says you are approved for a certain mortgage amount, they are simply stating the maximum they may be willing to lend based on their isolated institutional formulas. This structural breakdown of a loan approval illustrates massive blind spots in the bank's calculation. Those formulas do not account for your grocery bill, your commute costs, your hobbies, or your basic quality of life expenses. Borrowing close to the maximum leads to being house poor. You own the property but lack the liquid cash flow to comfortably live within it. Relying on market timing or an institution's maximum lending limit surrenders your personal financial safety to external forces that do not care about your actual survival. Your budget needs to come from your own life. Mistake number 3. Focusing solely on the monthly mortgage payment and ignoring the full operational cost of the home. This pie chart demonstrates the reality of monthly housing costs. Initially, the mortgage appears to be the entire cost, but as it splits, it reveals massive new segments. Property taxes, homeowners insurance, and utilities all add heavy ongoing financial burdens that surprise first-time buyers. Then you have to account for upkeep. A solid quantitative baseline is to budget roughly 1 to 2% of the home's total value each year for maintenance alone. If you only budget for the loan payment, you will feel an intense financial squeeze every time a repair occurs or an unexpected bill shows up. Mistake number 4. Buying out of fear that prices will escalate forever. The anxiety of being permanently priced out drives buyers to compromise on locations they actually want and take on unbearable financial constraints. A rushed purchase driven by panic does not eliminate your financial stress. It merely trades the anxiety of waiting for the anxiety of unmanageable debt. Mistake number 5. Comparing your personal timeline against the milestones of your coworkers, friends, or family. This chart illustrates the flaw in social comparison by looking at 3 buyers hitting the same age milestone. As it expands, it reveals wildly different underlying debt-to-income ratios, which is the percentage of your gross monthly income that goes toward paying debts, and baseline savings balances for each individual. Every person operates on a distinctly different baseline of income, existing debt, and family support. The correct time to purchase a home is dictated exclusively by when your own personal math aligns, regardless of what your peers are doing. Ignoring the hidden mathematical realities of ownership and succumbing to psychological pressures are the fastest routes to permanent buyer's remorse. Falling into any of these 5 distinct traps will actively degrade your long-term financial health and your daily quality of life. But you do not have to navigate this process with anxiety. You can replace the fear of making mistakes with strict, deliberate preparation. A successful purchase requires executing a precise step-by-step plan, rooted entirely in your personal readiness and real numbers. True housing security is never achieved by reacting to external market noise. It is built by rigorously aligning your unique financial reality with a disciplined strategy. Now, let me give you the step-by-step plan for what to actually do. You already know the market is tough, and you have likely spent months hearing about the common financial mistakes to avoid. Instead of observing the chaos, you can start executing a specific 7-step action plan today to shift your strategy. Relying on hope is an ineffective strategy when dealing with historically complex borrowing costs and property valuations. Organizing your personal financial foundation transforms you from a passive observer of the market into a strategic operator. Step 1. Pull your credit reports from all 3 bureaus. Look through every line to identify accounts you do not recognize, incorrect balances, or old items that should have been removed, and dispute them immediately. Even minor errors drag down your borrowing profile. Rectifying these mistakes is a zero-cost way to secure more favorable long-term loan terms. Step 2. Open a separate savings account dedicated exclusively to your down payment. Do not mix it with your emergency fund or your daily checking. Automate this transfer from every paycheck. This diagram shows how your income splits, routing a dedicated portion into a quarantined bucket. Step 3 is a practice payment. Calculate your total monthly housing cost, including taxes and maintenance. Subtract your rent and move that difference into savings. This provides immediate, risk-free feedback. You learn whether that projected budget feels manageable or crushing before you sign a contract. Pressure testing your budget while automating your savings builds a concrete financial foundation that most future buyers overlook entirely. Step 4. Actively search for first-time buyer assistance programs offered by your state and city. These programs use location or income-based grants to lower entry costs, mathematically subtracting from your total upfront expenses. First step 5, explore creative paths like multi-unit properties. Incoming rent checks from adjacent units fill up a portion of your monthly mortgage expense. Geographic flexibility is another lever. Expanding your search radius can change the mathematical equation and significantly increase your purchasing power. Moving beyond the standard search for a local single-family home multiplies the viable paths to a successful purchase. Step 6. Initiate an educational, non-application conversation with a mortgage professional. Use this meeting to extract specific data, realistic loan types, the true costs beyond the purchase price, and the specific credit score tiers required to access more favorable borrowing terms. Step 7 is the strategic evaluation of renting and investing as a mathematically viable alternative to an immediate purchase. This diagram compares the long-term value of a home against a diversified market investment portfolio. If the local housing market offers poor financial returns, the opportunity cost of a down payment makes the investment portfolio a stronger move for your capital. Renting and investing is a strategic reallocation of capital based on current market timing. The overarching reality is that the housing market remains broadly difficult, unpredictable, and entirely outside your direct influence. Success in this environment belongs to the people who prepare their personal math, rather than waiting for external prices to drop. This diagram illustrates the separation between uncontrollable external factors and your internal metrics. You cannot dictate interest rates, but you have absolute authority over your credit, your savings rate, and your timing. Focusing exclusively on controllable metrics transforms homeownership from a stressful hope into an executable plan. Like this video if it helped you see the true cost of buying. Comment, buy, or wait below, and subscribe for new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I will see you in the next one.